Hey, so if you guys aren't aware, PS 130 is a pre-K through fifth grade elementary school. We have two different locations. Our pre-K through second grade is located at 70 Ocean Parkway. And then our grades 3 through 5 is located at 713 Caton Avenue. The upper grades 3 through 5 is a shared space. MS 839, which is a middle school, is also in that building, as well as a District 75 school.
In pre-K at PS1, there's lots of learning through play and a lot of center time. Next. A little bit about the program. We have 4 classes with 18 students, 1 teacher, 1 class, 1 assistant each classroom. We are currently doing creative curriculum from the DOE, and we also have inquiry-based learning and play-based learning. And a few notes, you have breakfast and lunch are offered to everyone every day. They'll have rest time also every day, which will transition to a quiet time later in the year. We go outside at least once a day, sometimes two times a day, and we'll have neighborhood walks once a week or more. The hours this year are 8:20 to 2:40, but that's not always the same every single year. But it is full day. There's no early drop off, but there is after school program. This year it is Kids Orbit, which is inside the school. Our creative curriculum units are from the Department of Ed, and we started with balls, trees. Right now we're in clothing, reduce, reuse, recycle, buildings, wheels, exercise, and water. And it's an inquiry study. So what we'll do is we'll always ask the kids what they know and what they want to know so they can help us direct these studies. And we will have a lot of literacy will be basically read alouds, a lot of drawing. We have a phonemic awareness where they're listening to sounds, which is a Hegarty program. And we have we'll do phonics and teach about letters, words, and sentences. And a lot of the math will be hands-on, a lot of counting and number sense and measuring. Geometry might be through the block center. A lot of hands-on in math. And we have this responsive classroom, which is a school-wide program, which is basically that their social emotional learning is just as important as their academic learning, and that we want to know the children individually, culturally, developmentally, and we also want to know the families so we can best meet their needs. In pre-K, all the classes do self-portraits, and the self-portraits show their development as writers and their attention to detail. And that's about it. All the pre-K classes do that. And we will go outside in all different weather, basically, for pre-K, as long as it's not freezing. And do explorations outside.
So there's a lot of different art units and a lot of opportunity for kids to make art through making shapes or with collage, different ways of painting. And then the kids always have a space in their classroom to show their artwork or their paintings. And dramatic play, there's always an area for dramatic play in the classroom. It can change depending on what the kids are interested in. This is my classroom where they're studying doctors right now. Everyone's really interested in that. So someone made a scale, and this child is measuring the baby with the scale. In Maria's classroom, they decided to make an ice cream shop, and the kids can go in and buy ice cream. And then eventually we'll change the dramatic play areas to something else that they're interested in. And then in addition to the creative curriculum, we do inquiry studies, which is really just following the kids' interests and figuring out what the kids really want to learn about. In another classroom, they're studying superheroes, and so there's all books about superheroes. They're creating artwork around it, their play, and just following the kids' interests. based on that. And that also kind of spills into the block area. The block center is sometimes dramatic play happens there, and sometimes it's just about figuring out how to build a sturdy structure. All of the unit blocks are mathematically connected to each other also, so it's a really great place for kids to learn math and spatial awareness, and also just negotiating and working together. It's a great place for kids to learn all of those important skills. And every classroom has a designated art center too. And we're really thoughtful about it being very independent for the kids. And we introduce the materials specifically so that the kids can really learn how to use them, and then they can create things on their own, and they can bring those skills to the grades as they get older. And we have a lot of different specials. The kids have one special every day. They might have music and movement with Mr. Arnold, physical education with Mr. Stegman and or Miss Teresa, science with Miss Evney, and art with Miss Kirsten. And there's a lot of opportunities for families to be engaged and even come into the classroom. I think Miss Jackie will probably talk more about Family Fridays, but we have monthly newsletters, just kind of talking about what's going on in the grade. And there's opportunities for parents to come in as well. And we do celebrate birthdays in the classroom. Any questions?
If you're feeling a little shy, you can put the questions in the chat too. That's fine.
And we also have someone here who can answer admission questions. Elsa just joined us. If you have any questions about applying. I see a question. Nathan's mom. Izzy.
So either is fine. So when we went through pre-K with Nathan, we were at K280 and it was the year of COVID life. So that in many ways, this is actually our first pre-K experience, even though we're already at 1:30, because it was such a, and I'm wondering actually if either of the teachers could just speak a little bit to, and I'm not quite sure how to phrase this, but just like some of the socialization, it's like transition to large class. Like we didn't have a pre-K, 18 kids in a pre-K class because it was the COVID experience. I'm just wondering if you could just sort of talk about, we're going to be going from a 12 kid 3K to an 18, just sort of a little bit about sort of your experiences of the larger pre-K class. We just didn't have it because K280 was such a different experience in that weird year.
Do you mean like how the day would go?
I mean, a little bit about how the day goes, but also just like what a class of 18 4-year-olds looks like. We just didn't have that experience with our older kid in pre-K. And so we're going from a small 3K program. And I'm wondering about that experience of a large group of 4-year-olds, and I guess how you stay sane, but just sort of how that plays out in like the daily structure and the daily routines of the kids.
Well, I don't know too much about 3K, but I'm going to assume that for the pre-K, we're a lot more structured. There's a morning meeting, then there's a center time, they'll have outdoor time, and basically they'll have one special day. So they might come in, they're offered breakfast if they want, and then we'll have a morning meeting, or else they might go straight to center time where they play, and they'll have like the dramatic play might be for 4 children, depending on the size of what their center is. They'll have the block center. They can choose to do the sensory table, which is usually about 2 kids. So they'll all be in different centers, and it'll be enough, and usually enough more centers enough for 20 kids, so they can move around and switch. Art centers usually open for all the classes, and then they'll usually have another meeting just to talk about what they did center time. They'll go to lunch in the lunchroom, and the teachers are there with them at lunch. After lunch, they might go outside. They might have another center time, depends on the schedule day, or else they might go to music or art. Then they also have a rest time. In the beginning of the year, they all go to mats. Later on, we phase out of the mats, and they just have it's like a downtime that we feel that they really need. I think we all need downtime during the day, just to rest and have some quiet time. And see, they usually have about 2 center times. So one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and they might go outside in the morning or the afternoon. And then a closing meeting at the end of the day, and that would be it. Does that help?
So also, just to build off of that, every classroom has a teacher and a teacher's assistant. At the beginning of the year for both pre-K and kindergarten, we have additional staff that we repurpose. So a lot of like our literacy coaches, our AIS out of classroom teachers are around to push in and to help kids get acclimated in. But there's crying on the first day, right?
Yeah.
But it's normally it runs pretty tight. So our pre-K is in its own wing. If you've ever been in our lower school yard, there's a 1-story addition at the back of the school building, and that contains the 4 pre-K classrooms. So they have their own bathrooms like in that wing, and the classrooms are down there. So it's nice because they're self-contained in the hallway. And then somebody else asked about after school. So we have 2 on-site after schools at our building. Right now, this year, it's University Settlement, which has been with us for many, many years. And we have Kids Orbit. University Settlement is lottery-based and it begins in kindergarten. So it's a K-5 lottery-based free after-school program. Kids Orbit is on-site and it's fee-based. And I put their cost and some information from their website into the chat. We also have numerous other after-school programs that pick up in the schoolyard after dismissal. And usually in July and August, the PTA begins to share that information with families. When families get admitted to PS 130, they're given a Constella account that asks to join Constella, so then you can receive all the emails shared by the PTA and by our school. And let me just take a look and see if there's anything else, any other questions in the chat. I don't think I'm missing any. Does anybody else have any questions while you have us all? Oh, Elsa can ask this one. Elsa, how competitive is it if you're out of zone but in district?
So just so you know, about 60% of our 72 seats go to siblings. So we only have about maybe 20 that go to in-zone students. So out of district, it's very hard. Out of district, out of zone, it's really hard to get a seat at PS 130 because we only have 4 classes. So I usually recommend them to apply to 280 that has a lot more classes. 230 has some classes. But yeah, out of district for us is a little hard.
And of course, that varies from year to year. It all depends, with like what Elsa had mentioned with the priority of the siblings.
Mhm.
Hard to tell year by year because we just don't know how many siblings we are getting as a perspective, from prospective families.
Just as an experience follow-up from me as a parent, I have twins, and when they were going into pre-K, we tried to get into 130, and there were 75 spots, I think, at that time, and 60 of those spots went to siblings. So my twins weren't allowed in, but that's okay. That's okay, 280, but still, it's pretty competitive.
Somebody's asking if the sibling is out of zone, they're still going to give preference to in-zone siblings first. And there may be a chance that your child will get accepted, but it's depends. Each year depends. Last year we had about 350 applications. I don't know yet this year because it just opened up. And there was another question about kindergarten. Kindergarten is a little bit more flexible because we have 7 classes. We have 175 seats, and a lot of parents decide to take G&T schools, and that opens up a lot of seats for parents. It's a little bit more easier to get into kindergarten out of zone.
Do you know anything about how that might play out with admissions because of just in general the DOE and 2020 kids? Like, do you know anything about even the numbers? Just in particular, 2020, there are fewer 2020 kids because people all left the city and had their babies.
Right, but they're
And-
coming back. They're coming
Okay,
back.
I just didn't know if you
People
know
are
anything about
coming
those
back.
numbers.
Yeah, a lot of people are coming back. So,
Okay.
yeah.
But also, even if you don't initially get accepted, there's a wait list. And a lot of times there's a lot of movement on that wait list at the end of August. Is a key time. So the city, the city gives spots first to zoned with sibling, then zoned, then it's out of zone with sibling, and then it's out of zone. So there's like a ranking of how the DOE lets kids in for admission. Any other questions, guys? You're light crowd.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just fill in a little bit as a general thing about pre-K as a parent. I also have a little guy who's in kindergarten now. So when we were doing the pre-K situation, our first school was oh sorry, it was for 3K, so it's a little bit different, but still sort of the same idea. When we were trying to get into K280, because they had a 3K program open up, when the application was open, like when we closed and they were giving us offers, I think we were number like 88 for K280 in May, and then by the time August hit, we were in. So it got dwindled down as it went through. That's what was scariest thing about by August, the numbers start disappearing because everybody's accepting their other offers and everything. So if you get a high number and you really want this school, just hold off. Maybe it'll happen.
I'll talk a little bit about Family Fridays real fast because it came up when Maria was presenting. Family Fridays is a fabulously fun day. Once a month, parents come in to the school building and we alternate it. So if in October, it might be upper school building, and then November, it'll be lower school building. So we alternate it for each month between upper and lower. On a Friday each month, families get to come in and do an activity in the classroom with their kids. So it's usually tied in, we do a lot of units of study, which again, is like project-based learning. Oftentimes it's tied in with a large project that the kids are doing. For example, the next one coming up for first grade is working on a school study, and parents are going to come in and see all the different artifacts that the kids created while learning about different features of our school and other schools. But as a parent whose kids also went to PS 130, it's one of my favorite days. It's a day like my husband loves to go to. As an administrator, I love it because I get to meet all the different families and see parents. And parents get to go in and see what their teacher's like, what their kid's classroom is like. It's a great day. Anything else? Questions? Now you've got us. All right, I guess that's a wrap. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. You know where to find us. If you have any questions, we're doing 2 sets of tours. If you want to come visit the building in person, it's this Saturday and then again on February 3rd. There's a sign-up sheet on our PS 130 website, which is where you found the link to join the Zoom meeting.